start, right?
Yeah.
Let's start it up. So, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to have you guys here. It's nice to see all the numbers and the people logging on. Of course, it doesn't compare to seeing all the beautiful smiling faces and seeing all of you in person, but thank you for joining us, conditions being what they are, and through this platform, which makes it possible to still feel like we have a bit of community and we're connected. So it's nice, and we appreciate it greatly. If you don't know, I'm going to introduce myself and introduce everyone and kind of then get out of the way and let these wonderful panelists do their thing. My name is Christopher Baraka. I am the Deputy Director for the Doral Contemporary Art Museum. Doral Contemporary Museum, otherwise known as DORCAM, is situated in the city of Doral. We're on the western side of the county, of Miami-Dade County. We're a young institution. We're about 3 years old. And at this present moment, we don't have a brick and mortar location. So what we have been doing is creating programming throughout the city of Doral, satellite program that activates the entire city. So we have talks, we have exhibitions, pop-ups. And the idea is to really kind of bring that energy, not just to attract creatives into the city of Doral to exhibit and present work, but also to transform the city of Doral into the next destination for contemporary art. And in the process, of course, lay the foundation for a new museum. And so we are, we're kind of an experimental space. We think about new ideas, new approaches. And hence, that's why we have one of our great programs, which is Curator Conversations. And that's really the inspiration, the impetus for that kind of program. So with that, on behalf of our founders and board members, Ingrid Rockefeller, Dr. Flor Mayoral, Marcelo Devel, our executive director, Jorge Luis Gutierrez, and of course the mayor's office from the city of Doral, Juan Carlos Bermudez, and the city council. It's a pleasure to have all of you join us. Our efforts have produced great momentum, and one of the things that it's done is that it's helped create the foundation for a new downtown Doral art district. And so at the end of the year, if things continue along the way that they are, we hope to be able to launch that, and we are big partners in that process. And things being the way they are kind of put a stop to a lot of things. So we had to kind of think about, like so many institutions, how to still offer programs to to our community under these conditions. And we were kind of thinking, and actually the brilliant idea came from one of our founders, Marcelo Devel, and he mentioned, it's really important to activate the city, activate the community, and hence activation plus. And so for the rest of this year, you're going to see us bring programming that's going to re-energize, reinvigorate, and activate the city of Doral. And one of those things that we're doing is we say, well, who else, right, activates and brings new ideas than incredible curators who become translators and mediators, and they connect all the dots with all these artists and all the wonderful personalities that create everything. And so we turn to our great, wonderful friend, Omar Lopez Chahoud, who is the artistic director for Untitled Art Fair. And he says, I have two charismatic, energetic, fantastic young independent curators that I think will be fantastic for this first talk. And so because of him, we are gracefully joined by Miss Angelik Vizcarrondo-Laboy, who is the assistant curator for the Museum of Art and Design in New York, and she's presently between New York and Los Angeles. So she's on the West Coast right now. And of course, Mr. Daniel Baez, who is the founder and director for Mecca Art Fair and a board member for Art Noir.
Co-founder. I got co-founder. And Art Noir too.
I like it. So it's a great pleasure to have you here with us. For the audience, you can send us questions through the chat box, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to set aside a little time at the end for those questions to be addressed by our panelists. I do think it's important to bring it to kind of thank and bring attention to the wonderful work that Marcelo Devel has done making this possible, and of course our communications and community engagement director, Diane Tapia, who has been the tech wizard making all this happen. She's kind of like the glue that holds us together and kind of keeps us in line. And so we would be lost without her, honestly, So I just want to make sure that, I say thank you to her and Marcelo for this wonderful work that they've done. And Omar, thank you for connecting us. And with that, I introduce you to our curator conversation for the day.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you. I want to say thank you for inviting us to be part of this talk, and thank you, Christopher, Marcel, everyone involved with the museum. I'm very privileged to actually be in conversation with Angelik and Danny, two young curators that I truly admire for the work that they are doing. Last night, I had the honor to really have a long conversation with, and I talk to Danny all the time, and with Angelik, because Angelik is back and forth and she's traveling between the West Coast and the East Coast and so forth. I got to catch up with her, and it was a wonderful conversation to be aware of the work that you both are doing, which I think is extremely important, even though they're both highly or connected to New York City the same way that I am. I think what we have learned through this time that we're being sort of put to rest is that we need to think beyond one place. We need to be able to decentralize and to be able to bring with us ideas and create communities that don't necessarily need to be in the same spot in the heart of the artwork as we used to know it. And this is one of the things that I really want to address with both of you, is how do you feel this time to really stop our busy schedules of travel, of being in New York City, trying to attend? How has this affected your practice as both practitioners that have an interest in places, for example, like Puerto Rico, which is Dominican Republic, parts of the Caribbean that we always talk about and we're all passionate about, and that's where we come from. So for those of you that don't know Danny, Angelik, and myself, we are all Caribbeans. I happen to be Cuban American, I guess, Cuban. Danny's Dominican, and Angelik is from Puerto Rico. And we all three share one thing in common, New York City, but our hearts are somewhere else. And it's the place where we really, the place that we're coming from. And we express it. In my case, I can't go to Cuba, but I do actually have that inside of me, and I try to connect with all the places in the Caribbean that I think that we share a lot in common. But I will let Angelik and Danny talk a little bit about this question of how you feel about this time that you've been away for. Yeah.
Should I start, Danny?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thanks for the invitation to everyone. Everybody was involved in inviting me, so thank you. I have to say that the situation with COVID and the quarantine has, in a way, my practice hasn't stopped. Like, the shows that are supposed to happen are still supposed to happen. Like, they're still on the calendar, let's say. The thing is that because of shutting down and things are a little more difficult in terms of like shipping, or like, I mean, you think about what is even the point maybe of having an exhibition right now, because nobody can come and see it. There's all this thought going on, but I still have projects. I have a show that unfortunately keeps on being pushed. It was supposed to open June 26th, so a few days ago, but right now it's meant to open in November. But I to an extent, I don't like really count on that, unfortunately. Like, I expect that it's gonna keep on shifting depending on like what happens out there, if there's a vaccine or there isn't, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a little hard, I think, right now, because I'm just trying to reach a moving target that just keeps on running away from me. But I've turned my attention to like really the writing aspect of curating, so that in like incorporating, it was already like what I was working on had to do with like things that are happening right now, like the work of the artist that I'm featuring has to do with like the protests and things like that. So it was actually pretty timely, but I'm just taking more careful consideration into what I'm writing about the work given the current climate. But other than that, other projects, it's hard to say. Museums and all art institutions, I think, are in a very precarious place right now. So there's a lot of uncertainty, I think. To you, Danny.
But I have a quick question for you, Angelik. I mean, one of the things we talked about last night was your involvement with crafts and how you elevate how you elevate craft through socially your connection to a particular situation. Let's say, like you mentioned in Puerto Rico, you being working on a project that incorporates clay from the river, where you are you're very passionate about that particular project. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and what this project is about?
Yeah, I'm not working on it. I'm just sort of like consulting with people, but I have a friend who is. I have Cristina Tufino, who's an artist from Puerto Rico. She is currently doing a class through the Center for Craft in which she is working with local like artisans and craftspeople in Puerto Rico to sort of delve into like the clay history of Puerto Rico. So like actually going into the river and getting the clay themselves and then making the work and then firing it. That is something that I physically would want to go sort of observe, but of course can't do that right now. But that is a sort of a long-term project that I would like to do. I want to go back to Puerto Rico. I want to do research on sort of like the history of ceramics in Puerto Rico. Maybe find some connections with maybe like some indigenous pottery. But yeah, like I right now, I'm just very familiar with artists who are working on this right now. And there's a community that's growing there in terms of the clay community.
Yeah, you also, one of the things that I noticed is that during your time at Bard College, you focus on anthropology and being a curator, an independent curator, even though you also work for a museum. And I noticed that you worked as part of the curatorial team for more than 20 exhibitions at the Art and Design Museum, which is extremely impressive. But I also know that you have an interest in anthropology, and how is that affecting your practice as a curator?
Yeah, so that was actually my minor at the University of Florida. I just think that it just affects like the sort of the approach that I take to things, that I don't only focus in the like on the art of things. Like I want to know more about the culture that influences that art, like that makes that art happen. That's something that I always thought about, like for example, like mythology or like the religion of like Mesoamerican cultures, for example, which a lot of people like don't understand. But to me, it's like, okay, well, their religion was a way of explaining the world around them. And that is what influenced the art they made. So I just see it as an approach to things. But I'm not an anthropologist. It's just a minor. It's not something that like I claim. It's just something that's very present in my mind when I'm sort of doing research or, you know, working on something.
No, thank you. I mean, I just saw anthropology somewhere.
Yeah.
Your work goes beyond sort of kind of art as just you know, art, but in terms of social practice and all of that. You involve yourself a lot with the different communities and you know, also with a focus on education and so forth. Which passionate about, and which I respect a lot, and I see more and more young curators being aware of that.
I mean, I think you have to be. I think you need to be able to look beyond just one way of looking at a thing, and you need to come at it from different angles to have a holistic approach to it. And I think that's what a lot of the issues that are going on right now is saying just that. It's saying you have to look at it from all perspectives in order to address it properly.
I agree. There's a new way that is shaping itself in many different directions in terms of gender and in terms of, everything is revisited, and not necessarily revisited, but taking a new approach. Curators are taking a new approach to their work.
Yeah, I just think things can't be sort of studied in a vacuum. You just need to be able to see all the factors that go into looking at an object or talking about an object.
But also, one of the things that really struck me yesterday of our conversation, that you said something, I'm an artist advocate, that you didn't say right away, you didn't say you are a curator, you are there for the artist. And I hear that more often these days from young curators, that there is it. And Danny, we'll get to you. I'm sorry, we just quickly, but I'm gonna get to you because you are. Yeah. So anyway, so that's a beautiful thing you said yesterday.
Yeah. So I mean, I am a curator, but I think there's sort of like I don't know, like a negative connotation to being a curator. Like there's this, I think like a lot of people have this idea that we're like these like very like pretentious narcissist people. And at the end of the day, for me, what I love about my job is it's being able to share artist stories. So to be a champion for the artist, to be like, in other words, to be a ride or die for them, like I'm going to be that person who is going to defend their work and who's going to make sure that it's properly represented. I don't want a work by an artist to ever like convey something differently than what they meant to convey.
Well, that brings me to Danny, because Danny, I've been extremely lucky to see your work, especially in Puerto Rico. For those of you, again, that are listening to this conversation, MECA was such an initiative, and it is an initiative that when you first founded it, I went to the first edition. And what you've done there, first, second, and third, I've been 3 times to the 3 editions. You took Angelik. Angelik has been to all 3 as well. And it's so impressive. It's so impressive, the level of projects that you put together, working with a very tight budget, but that shows you that where there is a will, something will happen. I want to ask you, Danny, and I want you to tell us a little bit about MECA and all the other things that you're doing. I want to mention also that besides MECA, Danny's been doing a lot of independent projects, curatorial projects, showcasing very interesting artists of his generation, and even sometimes mid-career artists. Recently, I saw a beautiful, beautiful show in New York at the gallery. Remember the gallery, Danny?
Timothy Taylor?
Timothy Taylor in New York. That was a fantastic show. And the way you actually you were able to put together all the pieces was just extremely poetic, and everything related in a beautiful way. So besides you being such an amazing organizer, you also have a sensitivity when it comes to curation. Can you talk a little bit about how you managed to do all the things at once, and how you perceiving, or how you looking into the future?
Well, first of all, thank you to DORCAM for inviting us to have this talk. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Also, Christopher and Diney there, Maestro Omar Lopez Chahoud for, giving me the chance to talk to you today, Angelique, for becoming the panel partner. One thing I want to make clear, I don't want to call myself a curator. I never do. It's a title that's being given upon me by colleagues and people in general in the art world. It's something that I don't pursue to be called or recognized as. I'm more of an organizer, friend of the people, especially in the arts, and that's the way I want to be recognized. I'm more like a facilitator than a curator. Being that say, talking about MECA. MECA, it's an art fair, international art fair in San Juan, Puerto Rico, that's been going on for 3 years now. As Omar mentioned before, he's been on all 3 editions. The thing is Angelique. Actually, Angelique was in charge of our MECA talks this past edition, which was very great. It was the first time we did it on site, because the first time we had MECA art talks was 3 days before the actual fair in another location on site. MECA's not only me. That's something I want to make, clear from the get-go. The fact that I can do MECA the way I do MECA is because it's a group of 4 other people, myself, 5, well, actually 6. And those are Maria Angel Gonzalez, Maria del Mar Frederic, Hazel Colon, Sandra Sabater, and Tony Rodriguez, which is my co-founder. They are the ones that enable me to be able to travel to other places around the world, kind of gather intel or creating new connections and friendships all over the place. And then bring some of that to make some of that to my personal side of things on my own projects, or Art Noir for that matter, which I co-founded too, along with other 6 great human beings here in New York. The question was about more about MECA. So MECA started June 2017 in Santurce, Puerto Rico. The first edition was held in June because we couldn't find any other places for the winter and fall time, which is the ideal time that we want to have MECA, given the temperatures in Puerto Rico, which makes anybody that lives here or somewhere that's cold, attractive to come down to MECA. I don't know in what part of my life I decide to do all things at the same time. I never feel fully done with things, meaning we know we achieve things daily, but I don't want to sit on that kind of premises of oh, I did this and then I stay here and this is great, this works and this is it. I always looking for more. I give myself the benefit of learn more as I go. Given that I never went to school for art history or anything like that, I came from advertising and ended up working in art through a Thai artist called Rick Tiramanisha. I don't know if anybody knows him here, but he's my entry point to the art world. And then from him, go to Gavin Brown Enterprises, which is a well-known gallery, in the world. And that took me to the fair circuit, and I decided to start MECA with Tony in 2015, just in a small idea of having something to the Caribbean. And the reason why we did MECA was, and I mentioned this before, is with all respect to you, Maestro, you're Cuban, so you get more of an audience out there than the Dominican Republic and sometimes Puerto Ricans themselves. I felt like the presence of Caribbean artists or galleries and the whole art scene in general was small. When we go to places that we call Latin America, like countries like Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, you're gonna find somebody from our region, but it's a small kind of presence, and it's mostly Cuban artists. There are given the bouquet from the United States to Cuba makes people more curious about what the Cubans are doing. So, being that say, I see this Cuban gallery here and this Cuban artist there, and maybe one Puerto Rican gallery that's already established or being in the field for a long time, and 3 or 4 Puerto Rican artists that are not necessarily living in Puerto Rico. They live in the United States or Europe. So I understood that going back to where I come from, not necessarily my country, which is Dominican Republic, but like somewhere in the Caribbean, will kind of validate the whole spectrum of like the Caribbean being a creator, catalyst, pioneer in many of things that people don't recognize, not even in our own connection with what we call Latino world, which you will take a history book, like our history book from Latin America, and the Caribbean chapter, if there's one, it will be very short, giving kind of this not recognition on that level, but like another stuff like being political, being like fun, being, you know, like coming together. We are all brothers and sisters, but we are like, you know, taken out from the academic like side of things when it comes to art. So that was the main reason to start Mecca doing it. I never envisioned myself having an art gallery. So instead of me as an art dealer going to places, I was seeing like the prospect of having the galleries to come to us. Besides Mecca, I co-founded a beautiful project for mostly Black creatives and Black artists, Black curators, anything Black related within the creative fields of things or art as well. It's called Art Noir with Larry Mensah, who is a curator that many of you know very well, that have like the chance to work together before too, along with five female. You know, there are very strong women that are like killing in their fields, respective fields, which is mostly creative works. And that's something else that you know, being in a group of co-founders allows me to get the flexibility of going different places and do whatever things I do at the same time. This is the only way. And I think it also has to do with the energy, like feeling like that I'm still capable of doing things physically and mentally. Mm-hmm. And I want to take advantage of that, given that I feel I got into this thing that I do today, not necessarily late in life, but not as early as Angelik did, or other friends that I know. They start like when they were 20, yourself when you were like doing art back in the day. You know, I got this when I was 26 with no whatsoever experience with it. Or even my dad is an artist, he's a painter, but I didn't inherit the skills, nor the interest for it, but it went full circle and here I am.
So, Danny, I mean, talking about your dad as an artist, and one of the things mm-hmm. that I want to add to your what you're saying is that people forget. I've been researching. I have used a lot of this time to research more the Caribbean contemporary art scene, and people forget that the Caribbean is 26 countries, 44 million people. Very rich cultures with very layered historical and social layers. I mentioned to you briefly that I want to bring Angelik and you eventually to discuss this, that I'm starting to get involved with the Museum of Contemporary Art in the Caribbean, in Kingston, Jamaica. So the more that we start sort of focusing on the region, the more we can all bring our forces together to make a difference, because it's true. I think there was not attention being paid to the Caribbean as a very rich cultural space or space. But bringing me back to your dad and your connection to your dad who lives in Guadalajara, I know you've been doing a lot of work also in Mexico. Can you talk a little bit about your work in Mexico?
Yeah, my dad is a painter. I saw my dad when I was a child a lot, but my parents are divorced when I was 3 years old. So he would go visit me and my brother, you know, whenever he had a chance. So I would see him working. I would know the work. I've been in exhibitions of his before. But I think that, I don't know, there's a refrain, like say it's in house of it's something about like what you grow with, you do the opposite or something that has nothing to do with it, or like actually you go for it. I know which one is it, but I didn't go for it. It wasn't something that I was interested in because ese. Yes, yes. So I didn't pursue that. First of all, I think at an early age, I thought I had skills, meaning like, you know, creative skills in the sense of like drawing stuff like that, which is not true. I was really bad, and I'm still really bad at it. But in my mind, as a child, I thought it was good, so I would like make my own newspaper, create like my own like movie posters. The way that I thought it was, you know, good to me, which I think it was like amazing drawing, according to my mom too. So, given that I understood that I didn't have the skills or the same kind of DNA artistically of my father, I was never into it. Like I never saw myself like, oh, I want to be like my dad. I want to be a painter. Also, I grew up in the Dominican Republic, and a lot of us, even in the United States, happens. My dad was already a painter, right? He's doing this, but like if you're an artist, it says that you will be poor forever, you know? Or that's a bohemian kind of thing. Like that's like for people that doesn't do anything, like for lazy people. So I was not fazed by that, but I was just at the same time, I want to be an athlete, a professional baseball player at some point too. So I used to see my dad growing up with him, but I never approached art the way I do now because I was not interested in it. It was something that my dad knew how to do, and it was normal. It wasn't something special to me. And even when I became an adult, I went to school for advertising, and I was just doing many other things when I moved to the United States, nothing related to art. Even though I appreciate it, I like it, I would know a few people, but I was unaware of the whole, like the whole universe that is the contemporary artwork. Like I would know like few names, very classical painters too back in the Renaissance and stuff like that because of my dad, but I would not definitely like have no whatsoever idea of even conceptual art. That's something that I got into this through conceptual art, which is like a Ray Vanilla, which is one of the arguably the godfather of Asian aesthetics. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
You happen to work with an amazing artist. I mean, earlier on, I think you probably learned a lot in a very short time because I think for those of you that know Rick through his work is multidisciplinary. It covers pretty much everything. It's
complicated.
Really great place to be as a young person getting started in the arts, in contemporary art. But I also want to see how you and Angelique, and you and Danny, I do see a special connection between both of you in terms of what you believe and what you do. I mean, tell me a little bit of how you and Angelique, maybe Angelique can say something, how you met. Because one thing that I have noticed with you, Danny, is that you are really amazing at making connections and facilitate. You're an incredibly generous person, extremely generous. And even though you might be doing it for what, 10 years or 8 or 9, it could be a century for some people, because some people, they don't have the same passion or the same drive to do things. And I have seen you, you're not afraid. You just go out there and you do things. So I'm sure that this is something that connects you to Angelique. And I want to hear Angelique talk a little bit about how she met you and how you guys know each other as curators or as practitioners.
So, sorry. So I met Danny. I think we started like following each other on Instagram first at some point, and then I got an invitation to go to Mecca the first year, and I was like, why wouldn't I go? Like, this sounds like such an exciting thing. So I went, and at some point we finally met. And I mean, like, if you know Danny's like one of the most charming people out there, and he literally knows everybody. We were just hanging out together at LA. And it was like, okay, we're gonna go to the next one. And it was just like every 3 steps, somebody was like, Danny! And we basically never left because he just kept bumping into people he knew. He's just very good at making friends. So that's definitely one way to like work through, you know, the art world. It's like the more people you know, the more connections you're gonna have. And it's networking is not the easiest for everybody. I say like I'm not the best networker. I think I'm a very friendly person, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be successful at making connections the same way that Danny is. But I do think making connections is really important in the art world, no matter how you're doing it, whether it's just through actually meeting like other colleagues, people who can potentially, you know, give you opportunities, offer you opportunities, meeting artists, you know, like even if it's just like making a comment to an artist and saying, hey, I really like your work. Or like if you're really interested in an artist, you should probably try to make that connection go a little bit further, whether it's through, hey, I want to write about your work, or hey, can we do a studio visit? Just, you know, keep them in the loop of your world. But I think, I mean, that's something I really admire about Danny, and what I really like about Mecca is that idea of making connections within the island, within the islands, within the world. You know, like it's like little connections that sort of become wider and stronger that way. So that's my take on how we know each other.
That's great because
And, you know,
I love Angelik, the work she does so much that I want to mention that in the last show that I have the chance to curate in New York, which probably was one of the last shows that was open throughout the pandemic.
right.
And Angelik is the person, you know, responsible for the text, the amazing text of the show. So when I was doing the show, I was thinking like, you know, I'm not really the best person at text or writing anything for that matter.
Angelik,
But I know somebody that can help me, and I know she has the expertise and, you know, the energy to put like her real self into this. So that's why I asked Angelik to please collaborate with me and come down from her high level down to mine and do the text for that show, which is about it was a show with 11 artists, either like African American or Afro Caribbean descendant, or some of them especially called Afro Latinx, you know, and so and so. So yeah, that's how we met when she came to Mecca. And I was just thinking that it's kind of crazy that this person came to Mecca without not knowing if this is gonna be good or not, you know. But I appreciate that because we only know each other over online for Instagram, never in person. And she came through, and then she came to the second one, and then to the third one as also part of the fair. So yeah, that's how we met. I think because I would say her name on Instagram was Licky Wiki, and I thought it was funny or something like that. So I read it Licky Wiki, so I was like, yeah, she's like a cool person.
well, one of the things, Dan, is that everybody that I met at Mecca, the first, second, third year, was there really to support, and they were so happy and so fortunate to be there, including my dear friend Maria Elena, which you know, she's a big supporter. She's Puerto Rican. She came with her husband Henry, and they are a voice also of what you do, and I think we all need to be more open to these kind of initiatives because they are so important.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you both a question. What are you, if you can share, what are you guys working on right now that you're really passionate about, that you can talk about right now, that you
want? I can go now unless Angelik has to say something first. I give her the floor.
This is the thing. You mentioned that I've already worked on over 20 exhibitions while at MAD. And the thing is that ever since I started working at MAD, I've always had the most projects out of anybody on the team. I always just am working on a lot of things. But I have personal projects right now, I'm working on the show that I was talking about earlier, which is called Sleight of Hand. And it's a show that focuses on ceramics made by artists of color and on how they're using humor in the work as tools of resistance, resilience, and healing. So little small acts of protest. I'm very excited about it. I'm working on the essay right now. So that's hopefully gonna happen at some point this year. But I'm also at work. I'm working on like 3-4 other projects. One of them is it's basically taking this small project that I'm doing this year in North Carolina and it really blowing it up and doing it really big. And then I'm also just working on some traveling shows, a show by Sheila Pepe and Carrie Moyer that's coming from the Portland Museum of Art, and an Olga the Amaral show that's coming from Houston. So a lot of things going on, always trying to pitch writing out there, because there's, sometimes I have many ideas, but putting a show together can be a lot more time consuming, a lot more work. You have to go through so many people to try to make it happen. So sometimes writing is like a much faster way of getting my thoughts out there and sharing them. So I'm working on that. I'm working on trying to get some writing out there. I'm like really interested right now on the idea of the cute. So like how artists are using cute aesthetics in their work. Actually a lot of artists of color are doing that right now. So I'm really interested in investigating that specifically. But I think right now also, I think we're all in this moment that we're all trying to work and build ourselves as activists. So I'm also have a petition out there to try to get a logo off a coffee brand in Puerto Rico because it's racist imagery. So I'm doing a lot of things all at the same time.
That's exciting. Sheila and Carrie, both I have a strong connection to them, and we actually teach Sheila and I at SBA.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
So we share that and many other things. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing a show of their work, and also the ceramics show sounds amazing. It sounds so great and so timely. Where is this a traveling show, or is it happening in a museum?
Well, I mean, if somebody wanted it, but no, it's at the Center for Craft in North Carolina. They have a gallery. It has right now. I have 6 artists, and they're coming from California, Chicago, and New York. That's where I have the 3 cities.
That's definitely a trip to North Carolina, worth a trip to North Carolina.
Well, I'm happy to share once it's finally up, and hopefully people can come visit it. It's really, really awesome work. And I'm really hoping that my writing can do justice to the depth of the work.
Yeah. And Danny, tell us, what are you?
Well, for me, I can talk about a few things. I had a show set for debuting back in May during Arco Lisboa in Portugal, with the Switch Gallery, which was kind of the show that I had in Harlem. Some of the artists on that show, adding more artists into that, and travel to Europe with the show. But given the pandemic came through, we have to postpone the show with not a new date yet. We're still thinking about that with Koya, who is an artist and also runs the Switch Gallery in Lisbon. The other thing we're doing is, as we speak, there's an auction with Art Noir and RC to create microgrants for artists and curators or cultural workers that were affected by COVID-19 or still affected by this situation, and also by all the stuff that has been going on for the past 2 months. The auction is running. It started running on the 24th of June, and it's gonna give closure on next Wednesday, July 8th. So if you have a time and the financial resources or another friend of yours, please log into RC and look for the Art Noir auctions happening right now. The other thing is Mecca. Mecca was going to 4th edition this November 2020. Given that we don't know yet what the regulations for flying or traveling or gathering together are going to be the de facto, you know, moving forward, we might not have to, we wouldn't have the chance to physically go with Mecca. We haven't announced it yet, but unofficially, I'm sitting here in front of 50 people, you too. But we have something online, which is not a viewing room, by the way. So don't panic, people. We all due respect to everybody else. It's not a viewing room. It's something different. It's pretty much like a independent, like Mecca still, but like independent from whatever we do with the fair up to this point. I'm planning a summer show too. Hopefully, when people are allowed to get together, more than 5 people at the same time or by appointment at this point. I'm hoping to do another summer show. That's still in the works. We don't have a date, but it might be the beginning of September. And I have another project I cannot talk about right now, but I say it's coming soon. Some of the artists that are like actually logging into this panel, they know about it because I'm working with them. It's artist related, like always power to the artist and so.
Whatever you both do, you always embrace the artist, because that's one thing that I notice in both of your work is
Thank
that,
you.
yeah.
I mean, we vow them. We don't have shows to curate or organize or history to tell or investigate or analyze or sell.
There's a lot of, I mean, working in an institution, I have to say, there's a lot of people who kind of lose track of what the point of a museum is, for example. Okay, it's just like, it's about the art, it's about the artist, and it's, you know, you have to put them first.
Yeah, always.
Because I see Christopher somewhere joining us. Hi, Christopher. Thank you for your wonderful presentation of all of us. But before we go away, I wanted to ask Angelik and Danny to add something they really wanted to say today to us. I mean, in the conversation. I'm giving you both the chance to add something more to the conversation. How are we doing with time right now?
Well, actually, I hate coming in like this and being and like, you know, it's such a great party already. I kind of stepped back and I've been enjoying. This is fantastic. I love it. Like I could listen to you guys talk like all day. I love it.
Because across too, because we do feel comfortable with each other.
Well, I have a surprise edition, so I'm jumping in because our executive director Jorge Luis Gutierrez is able to join us, and he wanted to ask each of you a question.
Sure, so, before he comes on board, I just if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
The last remark by Angelik and Danny, something that won't take too long for them to maybe there was something they wanted to say that they couldn't get across. Angelik?
I'm gonna answer a question I saw in the chat about how, I think it was something like, how do you become a curator or something like that. I just want to say that maybe in the past there was like this expected roadmap. That is not a thing anymore. I think we're in a very different world than we used to be. So it's about finding your own way, and that could be by making friends, by educating yourself, by using the platforms that are available to you, whether that is social media, whether that is writing. There's so many opportunities out there, so you just have to kind of try them all. Like, I mean, for example, for me, yes, I have like a job, but I'm also doing independent projects for a reason, and that is that you won't always get to do what you want to do when you're working for somebody else. So that's why you have to kind of go outside and find those other opportunities. There's grants out there. There's so many things to do. You just gotta find them. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say.
Mine's real quick, and now we not have any, desire of getting anybody offended by this. I say, but take care of the artists, everybody. Also, curatorial assistants, like people overlook them, and we always just go with a big name in front, and people doing like, for example, Mecca. I'm out there, so people see me in Mecca, but Mecca it's more than me. It's like, like 5 other people like busting their asses for this project, and other volunteers and collaborators that come through, like for example Omar, that has been supportive, and not only of Mecca, for like pretty much everything that I put my hands on. Omar is like pushing for it, so I appreciate that big time. People like Angelik that came through Mecca last year for doing the Mecca talks, and she did an amazing job, and also like for my show now in March in Harlem, and take care of that. And also, not to discourage anyone pursuing an art career, but if you feel that you have to make it as an artist, then you're wrong, because there's many other things that Angelik say that you can do within the field. I know artists that become art dealers, successful ones, curators, directors of museums, so and so. Sometimes the timing is not proper for you, or life itself doesn't want that for you. There's something else out there for you. Like she mentioned, I just want to piggyback on that. Like, look for other things to do, how you can help the other people. Like, we all have ego, and in the art, like the ego runs very high. But if you leave that behind and you can put that energy of yours and the knowledge to the service of others within the same field or other fields, it is more like the rewards. It's priceless, So.
And you have to find your way, like your way of doing things. Don't try to fit into somebody else's mold. Yeah. I know that can sound really cheesy or cliche or whatever, but if you're not doing things the way that come naturally out of you, it's just not going to be as successful.
Christopher, I'm very sorry about the interruption, but
no. Are you kidding me? This is beautiful. Your response is beautiful. At the heart of it is about giving back and connecting, and man, we're honored to have you guys talking. And Omar, you are.
I'm sorry that.
Man, like we love you, man.
El maestro.
We hear from the director.
So I'm gonna try to get Jorge to come on, and I'm sure he'd love to have a conversation with you guys and ask you a question, and you get to meet him as well. Let's see if we can get him on here.
Thank you, Chris.
So, but you guys are magnificent, man. Love you guys.
Thank you, Christopher.
Jorge, there we go.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Well, it's a honor to have you. It's a great dialogue, and something that it's interesting about this is that crises reshape societies and bring activation of new possibilities. The team of the museum was born that way. We're a museum that was born in crisis with no space, no money, no many things, but we were determined to make it happen, and passion moves everything. The second thing I want to say before I ask the question to Omar, Angelik, and Danny is that the Caribbean, where we are all from there, is the best experience of crisis and the first experience of globalization. The Caribbean is not only Haiti, Puerto Rico, and all the islands, and Venezuela, Colombia, and the Guyanas, it's Europe. French were there, Chinese were there, Spanish were there. So it was the first experiment of trying to create something different.
I just want to say, Jorge, and sorry to interrupt you. The Caribbean is the gateway to the new world. It's a connection between the old world, to the new, because whatever came from there had to stop there. That is what it is, and then start this side of the world as we know it.
Yes. So, sorry, and then having crisis, right? We have it now. Having the experience of the Caribbean and the current state of things in which people ask what a curator is, which is basically, no matter if you go to school, it's about passion, it's about research, it's about being humble and understand that you are a bridge between the artist and the audience, and having persistence. How do you as curators, the three of you, envision the contemporary art world after this crisis, when yesterday I was reading that there's people that are not only asking to bring down monuments, but to bring down museums. So there's the question. How do you envision after this crisis what our world will be? Thank you. Thank you for the audience being here. And
thank you, Jorge.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I envision myself, in my own opinion, it's like a more clean, transparent, which is kind of like a utopian dream. And I mean, sorry, because, you know, as much as we want to do and make and create those changes, there's somebody or a group of people against it because it doesn't benefit their own agenda. The way I envision it is just more, as cliche as it's gonna sound, like more unified, like everybody like really like pulling for other people. Less patronizing, I hope too. A little bit like, you know, it's super elite, to be honest.
It is, yeah.
It's super elite, and that's a huge problem. And like, you know, I myself being part of the problem too, not like being elite, but like you know, not echoing bigger my position about it, which I hope I now I will do more often. So that enable also the tools for artists to make a living out of this somehow, like a decent living, not rich, not make them rich, not make them billionaires, millionaires, whatever, because there's few of them out there too. And sometimes I agree the prices are too crazy, you know, like it is beyond me, but you know, it's what they see, what they you know do, you know. But enable the artists to earn a living with what they do. If you think they deserve that, keep supporting them in any way possible, and ambition just like it's just ideal, to be honest. I can tell like off like how many different ambition, but I just want more like transparency and honesty when it comes to either like the face-to-face transaction, not necessarily financially. Like when people tell you stuff and well, let's do this, that like carry on with it, like do really do, you know, get behind it. That's my personal thing. So.
Well, I mean, I have to agree. In an ideal world, that is what it would be like. I mean, I'm hopeful that this will be a time in which actual change is going to happen in museums, and not just museums, just like the market in general, because it's all like kind of like a monster that feeds each other. So there's a lot of change that needs to happen. I do think that maybe we're better poised for that change now. I know that people are working within institutions to ask for these changes. It's hard because it's a big sort of power struggle that just really shows the issues with the world. But I do hope that there is more transparency, that there's more accountability, that people are less afraid to speak up about issues within like within the circles that you are in. Like, I think that's where you should start where you are most connected to, try to enact change in there, and hopefully, you know, that's gonna spread out. But no, I mean, I agree. Transparency is really important. That's something that we need, something that we rarely get. Hold people accountable, hold yourself accountable, be sure you're reflecting and really thinking before you're doing something. How, again, it's like kind of what I said before, you have to come at it from different perspectives, see it holistically before you like really commit to something. Like, are you really helping or are you part of the problem?
Wow. Maestro, diga algo.
Bueno, voy a decir algo. Okay, well, I have a lot to say about this issue because I was very fortunate to work at the new museum in the mid-90s when I moved to New York, and the new museum happened to be on Broadway, and it was Marsha Doper, and she was a true believer that the museum needed to change. Somehow after her, the new museum became something else, but during her time there, and she was the founder, she would involve the security guards sitting in the conference room with the curators to give their opinion, to voice what they thought about the art. Even when we had proposals for exhibitions, they were part of that whole day of reviewing proposals, and that was amazing. That was amazing. That was one way of educating, on reaching out to the communities. The kind of shows, you know, Bad Girls, for example, which was a show that she put together back in '96. All of that, Bad Girls 1, Bad Girls 2, and somehow we forgot about that. And we move in a completely different direction. And I think right now, I hope people are going to reflect on what the function of the museum is, which is about educating who your audience is, who is coming to the museum, how you're reaching out to those audience. And that should be, and I think I agree with both of you, with Danny and Angelik, that this is where we're going. And I hope we learn something from this situation, that those hierarchies are starting to crumble a little bit and things will open up. I hope so. Yeah.
Yes.
I always been independent, but museums were once I would have a problem, I guess, because I speak out sometimes too much. But that's why I became independent. Maybe now, if the museum changed, I might go to an institution if they want me, a small institution or something.
I think everybody needs to look at leadership everywhere, around the world, in our government, in the museums. Leadership is really where a lot of, you know, you got to think, things get trickled down. We are still in a hierarchy, and you got to look at that leadership and see what's coming from there.
I agree. No, it's.
I can listen to you guys all day. Like, I love it. I love it. You know, like Rob. I mean, or you know, please jump in. You know.
Okay. Did that answer your question, or do you still have anything else to ask? Or?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jorge.
You know, we're grateful for you guys joining us. You know, I don't know if you maybe want to take one more question from the panel. I saw you guys were addressing them, and you guys are fantastic. Like, you were actually conversing and answering the questions in real time and pulling it into the conversation.
We did our best.
You guys
yeah, I think we got them all.
I mean, if you have any other questions, Christopher, you want to read, feel free.
Well, let's see. You know, I think you covered the really great ones about how somebody can get into the field, covering the entire Caribbean, you know, as far as like the Antilles and the other islands as well. You know, we talked about the changes that are happening institutionally, culturally, the hierarchies. I think they were addressing those questions. And so I think you guys are amazing, man. You guys covered like so many of the questions that they fed here in the chat. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
if you guys want to, like, also like can send the questions to us directly.
Yeah.
If anyone in the attendees.
Well, you know,
I'll put my email there. So,
you know, I will tell you that we do have we have some FIU students, because, you know, I'm also FIU, and, you know, kind of rep, you know, art and art history. So we have some wonderful students online that they ask some questions, and one of our faculty members, Professor Roxana Carradino, she got her students on board, and they were asking some really great questions. And so perhaps that's something that it can be done, like reaching to those young, the next one's coming up, you know, maybe we can have a question sent to you guys, and we can do something with them maybe in the future.
A question just came up. That depends. I feel like, okay, so it depends on what you ultimately want to be. If you want to do both, then you kind of have to do both at the same time. I think I have seen more of artists then curating rather than curator becoming artists.
I agree.
So that's what I would say. It's like, really think about what you want to do. If you want to be an artist, and do that. And I think naturally the opportunities come up to curate because a lot of people want to see the perspective of an artist curating. Like I've seen it a lot. We've done it in the museum. It happens. Then the opposite, then being a curator and all of a sudden producing work.
It tends to be more of a national evolution to go from being a curator, artist to become a curator, because sometimes artists have the sensibility to evolve into something else that is a different investigation, but it's still a visual and process that deals with selection, which is curation. Selecting a visual, the visual, whatever it is called. Help me with that.
Yeah, it ends up being like an installation when an artist curates. I think it's a very different way of coming to curating when you're an artist than when that's kind of just what you do when you're coming from being a writer or just like a curator, like specific. But it can be very successful, and a lot of artists are doing it. You can see it's spring break, for example, in New York, or now in LA, I guess. A lot of artists are putting shows together. They're getting their friends together. They're getting other colleagues together, and it's just a different perspective and interesting ones.
Right, because there's also a connection to, like, a proximity to the material too, right? Like the artist knowing the material, having a real personal relationship to that. And so it adds like another almost layer to it when oftentimes the curatorial work is embedded within that connection to the material, to the medium, to the process.
One thing that I want to say is if you're an artist and you start curating and you feel that that's where you're going, don't worry, it just will happen. Something will tell you, stop trying to make art. Your work is in connecting different artists and making something else. It's a different form of expression. So I think not to try to fight both of them, just to let it be. And it will sort of lead you to where it's going to lead you, and you would know. You would definitely know when to stop making art and focusing more on
The
I'm sorry, I just found other questions. I didn't know there was like a Q&A portion of this. I see that Ludo asked a question about how artists making work around COVID and the Black Lives Matter movement, how that will affect artists and the works they're making currently. And what do we think, how have all this affected curators, and how will this affect curators and other cultural workers?
Employment.
I think that, what?
Employment, first thing, Well,
I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people have gotten laid off. Yeah. So there's a huge issue right there. But people who aren't, I think, I mean, for somebody like myself, like these issues are always on my mind. So in a sense, like, I don't feel like it's actually changing anything for me. But I think for other people who didn't necessarily care or just chose to not be conscious about it, then now they're like in this reactive mode in which they're like, oh no, we have to change our calendar because now we have to incorporate these things. And I think that's really unfortunate. I think people should actually really take the time to make real changes and incorporate things that go like that work organically and really like delve into those threads. And there's so much work out there that was already dealing with this. It just needs to get shown and be shown in intelligent ways.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think an immediate reaction to something that is definitely been happening much longer. I think it's a matter of what you said. It's a matter of something that has already been there, how to unfold it rather than a quick reaction to Black Lives Matter, a quick reaction to the virus, but more like analyzing and letting things that have been already there that we probably didn't embrace the same way we're embracing now.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Let's see. Yeah, I think we're also getting a little close to the time for you also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Angelik.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the viewers and myself, we could keep you trapped here for a while, but you guys have been more than generous with your time. Omar, we adore you, man. You are magnificent, and thank you for connecting these young, wonderful talents with us, bringing them to our community, to our viewers, and our
You guys made it happen. I want to say thank you because these conversations we usually normally have them when we get together for a beer. I hope soon, Danny and Christopher, and it's so nice to be able to share the things that we normally talk about, and to be able to share that with broader public or public in general. Danny and I get together occasionally in New York, and 3 or 4 or 5, 6 artists come, and we go and have a few drinks, and we talk, and we discuss a lot of things, and a lot of ideas come out of that. So I hope that we were able at least to inspire some younger people here that join us, and we hope so. I mean,
We're looking forward to hear from all of you.
Huh?
We're looking forward to hear from everybody here in the panel. Also, before we leave, Christopher, people's asking when's the next DORCAM thing happening.
Well, this is actually the launch of it. Activation is really like the first step towards that, and what we're doing is exactly this. The whole plan of the end of the year, closing of the year, is really leading us to getting back to exhibits and getting back to the momentum that we had, and really opening it up to like local, as our exhibitions are local and international and national. We're open to everybody, but we try to have these dialogues that they're interdisciplinary. They're like an intersection of art, design, architecture. And so, this is a perfect example of that. Like, you guys, just in your conversation, you covered the entire spectrum of really, what our heart is. And
thank you.
That's what we are. And so for us, what we'll be doing coming forward is, Orma has been gracious enough to agree to do a couple more conversations for us. We're going to be having similar types of events. We're going to have broadcasting some films. We're working towards getting to the exhibitions. And the way we're going to do it is, like the name says, Activation Plus. We're going to activate spaces. We're going to bring it back, get everybody together again. Observing what we can, of course, like progressive.
Of course.
But
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, that district that we mentioned, that's going to be a big thing. And when we spoke, and I'll say it again here, I'm putting you on the spot, you guys, we're open to your ideas. Come on, bring it down here.
Well, two very
Angelik's really good.
Yeah. Like, you're on the West Coast now, but when you make it this way, like make a kind of this way.
Oh, come on. I don't need to be on the East Coast.
Oh, everywhere, right?
Very true. Very true.
Well, one of the things that we didn't mean to turn the conversation into one particular region, but somehow we ended up in the Caribbean, which was something that just happened, and that's how things just come together somehow. But one of the things that I want to say that where the museum is Miami. Miami is a Caribbean city. Miami has a very strong Caribbean component to it that people forget about. Even the first settlers here were from Bahamas, you know, that came, you know, to what Key Biscayne is now. That was a Bahamian village there. And I can keep on going and going with Miami history because Miami is a relatively new city, but it's so Caribbean that people tend to forget that we might not necessarily be geographically in the Caribbean, but we are a Caribbean city.
Yes, sir. I agree.
With that, folks, I guess, you know, I'll set you free. I'll let you go, you know. But I just want to say thank you so much. You know, thank you to all three of you.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you, Diane.
Fantastic. This talk was wonderful, you know, and this is a great way for us to kick off what we're doing for the season. And I can't think of a better way to do it than with you three all-stars like you guys, you know.
Oh, come on.
Thank you. You know, for real, you know, amor.
Looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, maestro. Bye. Bye, Angelik. Bye, Christopher. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. And stay safe and keep in touch, okay?
Thank you.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, maestro.